Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Iñiguez. I'm a biology instructor at Northwest Campus, and I am a participant of Phase 2 of Teachership Academy. And the title of my project is Understanding Anatomy and Physiology Concepts through the Study of Vocabulary. The problem. In science classes, students must be able to read textbooks and communicate ideas using specialized scientific vocabulary terms. This is a continuation of my first year project in which I worked with biology students, and the recurring problem with the students was that they have a hard time reading journal articles and biology textbooks because of the complicated language. So I decided to continue this, but then tackle the anatomy classes. The students in my anatomy class and physiology classes struggle even with the simplest concepts, and this is due to the limited language knowledge of these specialized vocabulary terms, which are unique to science classes. The solution? My goal is to teach my students new anatomy and physiology vocabulary terminology through purposeful instruction of root words, that is, prefixes, suffixes, which are usually a combination of Greek and Latin. Once the students know a handful of these root terms, it helps them unlock the meanings of many other words, which will improve their overall scientific vocabulary and scientific achievement. According to the Journal of Adolescent and Adult Literacy, vocabulary is the major contributor to comprehension, fluency, and achievement. And I agree with this. As I always say, the more vocabulary you have, the more pictures you can paint in your head. And the more pictures you can paint in your head, that means that you have better learning by association. You have more pictures to help you remember things. And that's the best way instead of just relying on rote memory. For my materials and methods, what I did, this study was conducted in the fall 2014 semester, and the data collected was analyzed in the spring of 2015. The two Anatomy and Physiology 1 classes that I chose for this project were my Biology 2401 Section 19 on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 6 to 7:50 a.m. and another Biology 2401 Section 20, which was also on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but from 8 to 8:50 a.m. The Monday, Wednesday, Friday 6 a.m. class was the one that I chose and I labeled as the experimental class. This class received the specialized vocabulary lessons on scientific terminology for usually about the first 10 minutes of class, while the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 a.m. class received a traditional instruction. In other words, they did not get the emphasis of the vocabulary. The reason for choosing the 6 a.m. class as the experimental is very simple. Since those are hour and 20-minute classes, that gives me the luxury of spending the first 10 minutes or so for this project. The experimental class, which was my 6 a.m. class, was given a weekly handout with very specific anatomy-related terms, which emphasized the study of these root words, prefixes, suffixes. For example, here's an example of some of the words that were discussed in class in my weekly lessons. As you can see, if we choose the root word cyto, meaning cell, erythro, meaning red, leuco, meaning white, phago, to eat, and kinin, to movement, you can see that just by those handful of words, you can come with all these different combinations. For example, on my far left, an erythrocyte. Every time you will notice that all of the four pictures have the cyto or root word, which means cell. So they all will be grouped, meaning something dealing with the cells. An erythrocyte would be a red blood cell. On the second picture, you see a picture of a white blood cell, or for us biologists, a leukocyte. On the third, you see the splitting of the cytoplasm of the cell splitting in two. We call that process cytokinesis, from cytocell and kinesis movement. And on the last picture, you see phago, meaning to eat, cyto, meaning cell, and says the process of eating by the cell. And in this here, we see a picture of a cell engulfing another organism. Each class had full enrollment. Okay, I had a full class of 25 students per class. The assessment consisted of comparing the two A&P classes, the overall class averages for each of the 5 exams that they took throughout the semester. Then I did a statistical analysis. I conducted a t-test to observe if there was any significant difference between the experimental and the traditional class. Here you have a table that has the results that shows on the first column all the exams, 1 through 5, and then followed by the next column, which shows the scores of my traditional. The third column shows the scores of the experimental, those that receive the specialized training in vocabulary words, and then a point difference. If you look at the table, you will notice that in 4 out of the 5, the experimental which received the training scored higher. You can see in exam 1 there was a +2 difference. In exam 3, a +1 difference. In exam 4, a +2 difference. And an overall of a 0.6. The only time that the traditional scored higher than the experimental was in exam number 2, and that's where you see a difference of -7 on this table. In this line graph, I decided to do this line graph so that you can see that the blue is the traditional, while the one that is labeled in red is the experimental. Again, you can see that the red seems to be above the blue all the time, simply, again, showing you that my experimental performed slightly better than my traditional, even if it was a very slight difference. Now, a statistical test analysis was conducting using a probability value of p less than 0.05. After I ran the statistical analysis, I obtained a value of 0.39, indicating that there was no significant difference between my 2 Anatomy 1 classes compared in this study. However, it is important to consider that the sample size is very small. Only 5 exams were taken in consideration. Usually in statistical analysis, to get some validity, you need at least n equals 30. And this is probably the reason why the statistics show no significant difference. I did learn a lesson. Okay, I learned that with such a small sample size, conducting statistical analysis perhaps is not the best tool to measure the effectiveness of my new implemented approach. After discussing with my colleagues, we brainstormed and they helped me. They suggested several assessment tools that I could use in the future. Perhaps they told me I could use pre and post exams, weekly vocabulary quizzes in which I'm monitoring their progress week by week, or perhaps an overall assessment of effectiveness through a survey that could be conducted at the end of the semester to see if the students, I would ask the students if it was beneficial and collect data from them. In conclusion, even though the statistics do not show significant difference, it is obvious that the class which received the specialized vocabulary instruction scored slightly higher in 4 out of the 5 total exams than the other class, which was not exposed to the vocabulary lessons. Based on my results, I can infer that this new approach is starting to benefit my students, and it will be only a matter of time before I start seeing bigger impact on this new approach in all of my biology classes. Towards the end of the semester, my students were more engaged in class, and they seemed less intimidated by the scientific terminology, and they actually started using the lingo in class more, and I think it has to do with the fact that they were exposed to it. And this is very rewarding for me as their instructor. For future directions, it is my intention to further improve this approach to the science vocabulary teaching methodology and implement it in all of my biology courses. It is my hope that the students will learn root words not only for my classes, but also to take this knowledge and apply it to other areas of their learning during their years as EPCC students. For acknowledgements, I would like to thank the Teachership Academy and all of the committee members who unconditionally support this project and volunteered numerous hours from their very busy schedules. I also want to thank my mentor, Dr. Hilda Taylor, my lifelong friend for both phases, Phase 1 and Phase 2 of Teachership Academy. And last but not least, I want to thank my wife and my son for their patience, understanding, and love. I would not be able to do all that I do without their support. These are my references. And I want to thank you all for your time.